Yeah, how's it going, everyone? In today's project, we're going to create a countdown timer using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And of course, we're going to use SVGs in order to create this little timer right here. Now, the timer will need an input in seconds from us. Let's say I'm going to add here 20 seconds, then click on the start button, and this should then start the timer. Now, the animation is composed out of three things. One, the green animation that is going to go for as long and as the timer is above 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, it's going to turn orange, and after 5 seconds, it's going to turn red. And at the end, it's going to turn completely red where the timer ran out, and then the timer will stop. Now, if you don't have anything in your input, then the timer will not start. It will alert you with a please insert or whatever you then type into your alert text box. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the project. Now we are going to do most of the programming, most of the coding in JavaScript, meaning the HTML part will be extremely small because I'm going to push everything that you see in here through JavaScript. So it's a pretty exciting project. You're going to learn a lot. You're also going to use a SVG, which is going to be the timer. And as always, the code will be on my blog post, which is down in the video description below. And we are going to link also this project up in our GitHub repository. So it's going to have a separate GitHub repository. So hope you're excited. If you are, give this video a thumbs up as always. And let's just get started with the project. I'm NovaPM. By the way, if you don't know me, please subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post a new video. Now I'm going to remove my face and we're going to get started with the project. Okay, so first things first, let's create a little repository here. Let's go to GitHub. Actually, don't need necessarily a GitHub account. You can also just download then the files as you wish, but I do like to create the newest way is to create my projects on a GitHub repository. So this is going to be animated dash countdown and dash timer dash YouTube. Okay, so you're going to know from where this is coming from. I'm going to get a README and create repository. Okay, the repository is created. Now, no code is in here because I'm going to link it up in Visual Studio Code. But after the repository is done, you can just go here and just download as a zip file if you don't want to clone the repository. You can clone it, you can download it, do with it whatever you want. So this is where the source code will live, and the source code will be whatever we're going to code in here. So let's go here. Let's go to GitHub. So I'm going to start the command palette and use a git clone. And I'm going to clone from my personal repository. It's going to just open up my repository. And there we go. There's an animated countdown timer. I'm going to create a new folder for it. Desktop, web development, and YouTube projects. And here's where all my projects live. Okay, let's open this one up. And let's get started. So first things first, I'm going to create here a index.html file. Boilerplate. I'm going to move a bit faster for today. I have a lot of stuff to cover and not enough time. Okay, let's do here save. Let's change this to countdown and timer or animated. Should be the title. Let's hit save. I'm also going to open this up using live server. So right click, open it up at live server. It's going to be on the right side. And then we could just get started by adding first things first. I'm going to link up the CSS file, so don't wonder why CSS file is not working. So let's add a link tag. I'm going to add up our style.css. Let's also create a style.css, new file, style.css. And this is just a basic setup, so I'm going to use a star, a general reset here, and margin 0 and padding 0. I also think I'm constantly hitting my cable here, and this is bumping my microphone. So let's also add here a font family of sans serif. And if you can hear my daughter singing, then you have background music. Enjoy it. Sans serif. There we go. Okay, so let's add a title here so we can see what is going on. Let's say H1 timer. So I just want to have something in here. Okay, timer is working. CSS is also linked up, I believe. Let's check this. Color red, because I'm not going to use CSS. Yep, it's working. Okay, I'm going to delete this. So that's basically it for CSS. Now I'm going to delete this. And I'm just going to create an input field. So a inputs class. And within here we're going to have an input. Now the type of this input will be number. So you can't add any text in here. We don't need a name for this for right now, but we do need a ID. And this will be the time-input. Okay, you could also add a placeholder if you wish. Whoops, not plain text. Place. And maybe I'm going to add it in the input field. So placeholder and enter seconds. Okay, let's also activate word wrap. Command pad and toggle word wrap. Perfect. And I could just close up the left side and you know what, I'm going to create here main.js file. Hit save. I'm going to close up this Explorer tag here. Okay, so I have my input tag. It's up here. Next, remaining in the inputs field, I'm also going to create a button. And this button is going to have a class of btn. And that just says it's going to start the timer. So just type in here text of start. Okay, now let's also add to this button a ID of start and btn. And that's basically it. Now for now, I am going to style this. So let's style our inputs class. Let's open up a style.css, close this one up. Let's create a comment of inputs. And let's get started. Now I'm going to use CSS nesting, meaning that if I select my inputs, and within here I want to style my button, I can just, the class of button, I can just select it within here. Let me just show you. If I change the background color of this button to hash and free, it's going to change the color, as you can see. So let's furthermore style this by removing the border. So just a bit of general style for this button. Let's change the color to white. So hash FFF. Let's add a border radius. Oops, border and radius of 5 pixels. Let's text align the text to the center. Let's increase the font size to, let's say, 18 pixels. 16, 18 pixels. There we go. Let's add a bit of padding. I'm going to add padding all around of top and bottom 11 pixels and 20 pixels for left and right. Okay, now this is extremely zoomed in. This is why you're seeing it that large. If I reset this, you see it's extremely small, but I do want to keep it zoomed in. I am at a higher resolution. That's why I'm zooming in. Okay, now let's also add a margin. Let's go top and bottom of, let's say, 4 pixels and 2 pixels. And then, of course, cursor pointer in order for us to see when we're over our button and we can't take any kind of action. Now, I do want to add a hover and an active effect. And for this, I'm also going to add a transition. Also, all the effects that I'm going to do in hover and active are now going to take 0.3 seconds and a animation of easing out. Okay, now in order to target my button, I'm going to use the parent selector, which is this ampersand. And let's do a hover now. We should be much closer. So hover, and when I'm hovering over that button, I want the background color now to change to hash and 45. I'm going to just create here a green color, 0 and 49. It's going to give me a greenish color. So if I hover that button, you're going to see the color change. Now, why is the background color not dark? Oh, there we go. Added one too many freeze. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing for the active state. I'm just going to decrease the color. So I'm going to copy this, change it to active, and make this much darker color. Somewhere there. So if I'm hovering and if I'm clicking, it's going to change to a darker color. Okay, next I'm going to style the input. The input has a ID of input or time input. Let's just verify that. Yep, time input. I'm going to copy this ID. Go to my style.css. Now I am going to jump out of this button. Okay, so let's go outside the button, target the ID of time input, and from here we're going to go with the width of 100 pixels, a height of 30 pixels, a border radius, same 5 pixels, a border of none. So let me scroll up here. So a border of none is going to take out the border. I can leave it 1 pixel. Solid and let's say gray. Or light gray. It's even better, light. Okay. Let's also add some padding. I'm going to add 10 pixels and 5 pixels left and right. Maybe that's a bit too much. Let's just add the all-around padding of 5 pixels. Yeah, that's much better. Now, whatever we type in here, we'll have a font size of 18 pixels. And I think we're done for now. Not XP, but pixels. Let me just correct this. Okay, now we're done for now. We have a start button, we have our input. We are going to move now to our HTML. And above the input class here, I'm going to add another div, this time with the ID of timer. And this is where the timer will live. Now, in order to create a timer, we're going to go to our JavaScript file. And within here, we're going to go to the document.querySelector. Or you can also use getElementID, whatever you want. So query selector, and I'm going to use here the ID of timer. Okay. Now I'm going to select the ID of timer and change this inner HTML. And I'm going to use backticks and add as a temporary label. I'm going to start adding the timer. Now I'm going to first of all create here. And this is much easier to create it in HTML and just copy it in. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go underneath the div, or you can create it actually also in here in the timer ID. Let's go ahead, create here a div. So within here, I'm going to create a class of base timer, because you will see we will have multiple layers over it. So base timer, in that base timer is where SVG will live. So let's create here a SVG tag, and it's going to have a class of base dash timer and double underscore SVG. Okay, now the next part of the SVG I'm just going to copy in, go over it, and let's have a small little discussion about our SVG here. So I'm going to copy in here everything. There we go. We have a big circle. That's exactly what the SVG does. So remember, the class was base timer. We have a view box. This is the view box. This is what I'm having here, 100 and 100. We're going to have this as the source for the SVG. And we're going to have here then the base timer circle. Then the circle is going to have x-axis 50, y-axis 50, 45 for the radius. The path is going to have the ID of base timer path remaining. This is very important. And then stock dash array is also very important, because we're going to take care of this just in a couple of seconds. We're going to add a couple of variables. Now, base timer path remaining is also important, as you're also going to see here a little variable. You're going to use that variable just in a couple of seconds. Now, we're not quite done yet. After the SVG closing tag here, we're also going to create a span tag. This span tag is going to have an ID of base dash timer and dash timer dash label. Okay, because this is where the actual time will be displayed. Now, after this, I'm also going to add this a class of base and dash timer and then underscore label. I'm going to take this in order to style it. And within here, we're going to add then later on a function which is going to constantly display our timer. Now, everything that I just created in our timer, I'm going to copy, including this div, cut it out, save it, and go into our HTML and paste it in here. Okay, so you're most certainly not going to see anything for now, but we are going to take care of this just in a couple of seconds. Also, you're going to have an error, most likely because you're missing this little fellow. So inspect console. Oh yeah, did we link up our? Nope. So let's go up here. Let's link up our JavaScript file and we get script. Script with a source of main.js, and now it's going to scream at you. Remaining path color is missing. Now, what is up with this remaining path color? Well, we are going to add some path colors depending. I'm going to close up our console. Depending on how much time it's left. So let's go to our main.js file, and we're going to go above our query selector. And I'm going to start creating here. Let me just add that remaining path timer by creating it. So let add here the remaining path timer. I'm going to add it to, you can just add it to whatever color you want. You can add it to red, let's say. Okay, as this is going to give you the, now it's going to just insert the SVG for you. We're not going to remain with this red color. We're going to change it. So let's move up here. I just want to have it so we don't have any kind of errors anymore. Now let's create 3 variables. One variable will be for the dash array that you just saw here. So there we go, stock dash array. So let's create a const, and let's call it fall. I'm going to use here capital letter fall and underscore dash and underscore and array. I said array. I'm going to assign this to 283, the value of 283, just as you have it down here. Now I'm going to create another one. Now the variable is going to be warning. Let's type in here warning underscore threshold, threshold, and this is going to be 10. Remember when I showed you in our finished project when we only had, let's just add here 10 seconds. So when I add 10 seconds, oops, let me refresh here. When I do add 10 seconds, after 10 seconds, after 5 seconds is going to turn red. So the 10-second bar is yellow and then the 5-second bar is red. Now the warning was that with the 10-second bar, okay? Now this not only means 10 seconds, but it's the always the last 10 seconds from any kind of time. If you add 1 hour, still the last 10 seconds will be yellow. Okay, and the last one will be, oops, const caps lock is getting stuck. So const caps lock again on the alert underscore threshold. And I hate typing out thresholds. So I'm just going to copy this. Okay, so and also we're going to assign this to the last 5 seconds, so the value of 5. Now let's create a object that is going to have in it all 3 colors for the array. So the first things first, I'm going to take out my caps lock. So let's create a const of color underscore and codes. As you saw up here, we're going to have 3 color codes. One is going to be for info. And basically going to create here an object that's going to have a key value pair of color. And as long as the timer is working, we're going to have a green color. Okay. Now the next one will be warning, which you can remember, set here the color, was a orange color. And there should be a string. Okay, so orange. And now we're going to add another key value pair, and that's going to be the threshold. And for the threshold, we're going to set now the warning threshold that we just created, the variable up here. Okay, and you guessed it, the last one, just going to copy, is going to be the alert. So alert, the color will be red, and the threshold will be alert threshold. Now down here, we have all let remaining path color. And this is where all our time variables will live. So I'm going to create here another let with timer or time and limit. And we're going to set this for 0 as an initial time. Actually, our initial time here, also here later on, will be first of all 0. It's going to start at nothing. Then we need a time passed. So let's create here another one. Time passed. I'm going to also set this to 0 as an initial value. Then we're going to have a time left, because when time is passing, it's going to leave us with some rest time. So let and time and left. And FYI, I also did this one in React. It's so much easier in React. Now we're going to take our time left and going to add it, start us to the time limit. And last one will be another variable, let with timer and interval. I'm going to set this to null. Perfect. So we have all of our variables. Now we can pass our time left down here in our span tag. Oops, just misspelled here. In our span tag, I'm going to pass it in here as a time and left. Okay, so we have here 0, oops, 0 for now. Now, because I have our timer, I can now continue on, our timer displayed correctly. I can now continue on and style this using CSS. So let's move to CSS and let's start styling our timer. So we're going to grab onto our base dash timer. We're going to position it relative, and we're positioning it relative because we're later going to position our time in the center as absolute. So let's add to this a width of 300 pixels and also a height of 300 pixels. That's going to take the base timer SVG, so the class of base timer and underscore double underscore SVG, going to transform a scale of -1 and then change its background color to a white color. Now let's change its border radius to 50%, and that's basically it. Now let's tackle on our base time circle. It's going to be the circle in here. So class base timer underscore circle. Remember, double underscore. And we're going to fill it none. Perfect. And now let's take the stroke and assign this also as none. Now we have a elapsed. So let's take the base timer underscore path dash elapsed. Let's add here a stroke width this time of 7 pixels and a stroke inline cap of rounded or round. Let's transform, rotate with 90 degrees. Let's now transform origin. We're going to set this to center. We're going to have a transition of 1 second linear and all. And now let's fill. Actually, we need to use here the fill rule. We're going to set here the fill rule as non-zero. Okay, and the last thing that we need is a stroke to be a current color. Now the current color is dark, so this is why you're going to see this little dark color. Okay, now we need our 3 base colors, which was the time passed for when the timer is just regularly running. So it's going to be a green color. So let's grab onto the base timer and then underscore path, and not elapsed. It should be remaining. And we're going to add to this the green class, and in the green class the color will be, well, of course, a green color. So we're going to use here a green color, or green yellow. Now let's do this 2 more times. I'm going to only change the class here to orange, and also change here the color to orange, and I'm going to copy this again, and red, and change this to red. Okay, so we're going to have all 3 colors. Okay, now all we need to do now is move this little fellow up here. Is the base timer label, as you can remember. So base and timer and double underscore label. So let's move it by positioning it, as I said, absolute. And now we can add a width here. First of all, let's add it to the top with 0, and let's display it as flex. Let's hit the save. Okay, it's up in the top corner. Now also going to use here a align item center, and of course justify content center, and then I can also change the font size to 48 pixels. And all I need to do now is add a width and a height to it. So width of 300, the exact width and height as the container, and height of 300, and this should center it in the center, of course. Okay, now that's pretty much it for all the styling that we need. And I could actually just close up everything. Or accepting the timer. Let me just think about it. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to move everything in the center. So let's just grab on here to the body tag. Let's say display flex and justify content center and line items. Center and also flex direction should be, of course, column. You can have it like this. Okay. Now let's move to JavaScript. So next, we're going to close up our CSS file. I'm also going to close up our HTML file. We don't need this anymore. We have everything that we need. First things first, let's add a function that's going to start our timer. And we're going to start a timer by clicking on the button. So this means that we need access to our button. So let's go ahead and do a window add event listener. And when the windows loads, we're going to use here arrow function. We're going to do a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to grab onto the start button, start and btn. Go to the document dot get element by ID or query selector. Let's use get element by ID. Get element by ID. I have a bunch of IDs here, and I'm going to use a start button. Start btn. That was the ID. And if you want to always be sure that you have the right elements, just console log them. Okay, so if I pass this in here, also open up the console. Let me just move it down. There we go. So I should see in my console the button. Perfect. And next element that I need here, let's get another const of time input. Let's go to the document dot get element. Oops, almost used query selector. Get element by ID. And I'm going to use a time dash input. Perfect. Let's also console log this. C comma and time input. Hit save. You should see both of them. Perfect. Now I'm going to comment this out. Now when I'm loading this event, I also want to grab on to this element and then going to add an event listener to it of change. Now you could also use on change if you want. So on change, just add it to an arrow function, and then function will just do two things. First one is going to take the input value, that whatever we input here, and I'm going to assign it to this time limit, because for now it's 0, and we want to change the 0 value to whatever value we pass in here. So I'm going to take the time limit. Remember, we defined it with the let keyword, so we can change it now. So time limit will be the input time dot value. So this is going to change our value of the time limit. Now, after we added our input, I also want to clean the field here. So I'm going to time input value, reassign it, time input dot value, reassign it to a empty string. So absolutely nothing. And that's it. Now let's go to our start button. And we're going to push our start button, so we can add a add event listener, or we can just use a on click. I don't know. I really like them. Instead of using add event listeners, so far and so on, I'm going to use this. It's exactly the same thing, but it's much shorter. So on click arrow function, and it's just going to start the timer. Now we don't have this function right now, so I'm going to create here a function start timer and just have it return a console log of input.value. Okay, so let's add here 20 start, and timer is not defined. Oh yeah, because I defined it not in the global scope but in the local scope. So I'm just going to log here value. Okay, so start and value. Now I also want to prevent that the timer starts without any kind of value in here. So I'm going to use here a condition that if, actually up here, I'm going to wrap this now into curly brackets. If the value, so the input, the time input value is equal to nothing, to empty string, then we're going to alert the string of add time and if it's not empty, then we're going to start the timer. So if we start the timer, then it's going to add value, alert us. And if we add something in 23 seconds, let's say, wait, this shouldn't happen. 20 start. Oh yeah, because it's resetting. I'm so dumb. Let's change the time limit. So if the time limit is empty, let's try this again. 20 value. If it's empty, just going to let me refresh here. Or it's 0, actually, then it's going to alert us. And if we have here 20 seconds, then it's going to launch the timer. Okay, so we have a condition here, and now we can work on our start timer function. Now the function will need some kind of interval where each time is going to count down 1 second. So we're going to create here a timer interval. Actually, we already have it created, but now we can set it to the interval function, and then we can start. We're going to assign this to an arrow function. And now let's change to the time passed. We're going to assign the time passed to the time passed, and we're going to start iterating by just getting +1. Now we can also change the time left. We're going to assign this to the time limit minus the time left, or the time passed, not the time left, minus the time passed. Now, in order to display this, we need to grab onto our little 0 here, which is the label. So within here, we're going to go to the document.getElementById again, and we're going to grab on to the base timer dash label. And we're going to change its inner HTML to the formatted time. Now, we need to actually to the time left for now, but we need to format this time in order to have some real values. Now I'm going to create a function. I'm going to wrap this in a formatted time, formatted, and time, or format time, formatted. It doesn't matter. Format time, let's say. Now let's create this function, format time. So function format time, and it's going to take in a time as the argument, and then it's going to pass it down in the function, and we're going to create here a const of minutes. Now to display minutes, we're going to take here our math.floor option and take that value that we're going to pass in here and divide it by 60 in order to get seconds. Okay, now we're going to create a variable called let seconds and assign it to the time and then percentage and 60. Okay, now if our seconds are less than 10, then the seconds will return as a 0. I'm going to use here backticks and the value of the seconds. Okay, so we're just going to add a 0 before those seconds if the seconds are less than 10. Okay, now we just need to return out of this function. I'm going to open up backticks again and variable of minutes, which we just added up here, and then column and the seconds. Okay, so this is the formatted time. So whatever time will be passed in here will be formatted up here. Okay, as you can see, it's already working, but it's in an infinite loop. So let's refresh here, stop it, and start working up here on a start timer function. Now, after we formatted the time, we could go back in here and create another function which we're going to call set circle dash array. Now what this will do, let's first of all create the function. So function set circle dash array. This is going to create a circle dash array. Let's create a const circle dash array. And we're going to assign this, again using backticks, to a variable of And in order to get those circle dash array, we need to calculate the time fractions, and we need to multiply them by the full dash array. So those 283 values that we had up here. Okay, so we're going to pass this into a function of calculate time fractions. I'm just going to see here fractions. So this is going to be a function, and then we're going to multiply this with full dash array. Now, because we're going to get values with commas after it, I'm going to pack everything that's in here into a to-fix, and we're going to set this to only 2 decimals. Actually 0 decimals, not 2. And then we're going to multiply everything 208. Oops, this should be outside, so 208. Okay, now we need our little function here. So calculate fractions, going to create it up here, function, calculate time of fractions. And this is a pretty simple function, which is just going to, first of all, let's create a const of raw time fractions, or fraction. And let's assign this to time left divided by the time limit. Okay, and this will then return our raw time of fraction, and we're going to subtract from this 1 divided by the time limit. I know this seems complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. And then multiplied by -1, and actually 1 minus the raw time fraction. Okay, now let's move again down in our set circle dash array, and we're not quite done here, because right after this we got to go to the document dot get element by ID, and now we can select our base timer, base dash timer dash path dash remaining, because remember we are setting here our circle dash array remaining, and we're going to set attribute a stock or stroke dash array, and then as a second argument we're going to add here the cycle dash array. Perfect. Okay, so let's try this out. Start, and nothing happens, but at least the timer is working, and we can see here our values being added. Okay, let's hit a refresh in order to stop it. Now let's add our second, or actually our third function here. It's going to be the set remaining path and color. And again, this is going to take in the time left as a argument. Now, we still need to create this function, but I don't want to leave this without adding here another condition that if the time left is equal to 0, then we want to signal our user that the time is up. So we're going to create a function that on time up. When the time is up, we're going to launch this function, and we can actually grab onto this function. We can actually create this function really quickly. Again, this is a pretty simple function. This is just going to, let's create it down here, function on times up. It's going to just clear the interval, and this is going to clear the timer interval. And of course, it needs to reset the time limit now to the value of 0, to its initial value. Okay, now this timer here needs to count down. This timer, start timer, and the set interval needs to count down each and every second. So we're going to add here 1000 milliseconds. Okay, now for our set remaining path color, because if we add here 20 seconds, let's say nothing will happen, only the timer will start counting down, but we can't see the animation here because we're missing our colors. So let's refresh and start adding our colors now. For this, we're going to copy this, set remaining path color, and let's go, should we go down here. Let's create a function of set remaining colors, path colors, and it's going to take in the time left. And now we're going to destructure here, const, we're going to destructure from our colors code. So let's add here colors code, all of those colors, and just going to add here a alert, a warning, and a info. Okay, now I can use all of them by adding them into different states of our SVG. And for this, we first of all going to create a condition because they need to be added in specific intervals. Now, for example, if the time left is less or equal to the alert dot threshold, then we're going to get onto the document. We could also do this with switch statements, but I'm going to remain by using if statement. So we're going to go to the document and get our element, and we're going to get here base, timer, and path remaining. And from the class list, we're first of all going to remove our warning dot color. Okay, let's also toggle here the word wrap again. Now, if this is removed, we also need to add then, so I'm going to just copy and paste this, the alert color. So I'm going to add the alert color. Okay, now let's add another statement. It's going to be else if. Our next condition will be that if the time left is less or equal to the warning dot threshold, then I'm going to copy these from up here, paste them down here. So if it's less than the warning threshold, then I'm going to remove the info color and add the warning color. And then we are done with our function. So let's try this out again. So let's add here 20 seconds, start, and we're not seeing anything. Let me just check my code here really quickly. Oh yeah, because I forgot to add the function up here in our time left, because with this needs to be formatted. Oops, pack this into parentheses and format timer, and now we should see our colors. No, still not adding. Oh, wait just a second. Formatted path remaining colors. Let's say I have this one in here. Oh yeah, I forgot that at the start we changed this to red. So this should be actually the remaining path color should be actually set now to the colors code, and that dot info and that color. Okay, so this is the initial value of our color here. Oh, and let's just open up our CSS. I think I've messed up here the path remaining. Sorry about that. So we need to let's just copy this. So path timer, path elapsed, and then replace this elapsed with remaining. Delete these two fields, save it, and there we go. I just forgot to add the path remaining is default value. Now our path elapsed, we need to delete this part. And now let me just see 1 second, round it. This is a bit too thin. And let's just try this out. 20. Okay, and now it should start counting down. And there we go. Let's see at the 10-second mark. Yep, it's changing to orange. And now at the 5-second mark, it should change to red. And there we go. And it's done. Perfect. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any kind of questions or suggestions for future projects, please leave them down in the comment section below. As always, my name is Norbert. If you like what you see here, then please subscribe to the channel and also ring that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post new videos. Also, if you want to learn CSS, JavaScript, or React, or actually any kind of web development framework, then check out my courses. They're all on Udemy. Also, check out my website. They have tons of videos and tutorials for you. So with this being said, I wish you all a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.